That seems to
Like I
be
know
that's a very
it's in
common
one
question.
placing, but I'm confused.
So it'll be first person and 5 paragraph. Anytime you hear the word essay, if anybody tells you to write an essay, you should assume 5 paragraph format: an introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. We're using that also for our research paper, which by definition doesn't have to follow that, but it's just convenient and it's easy to follow. So anytime somebody tells you to write an essay, there are some certain things that you should assume. Um, 5 paragraph format, 12 point Times New Roman, double line space, and if it's APA, then you know it has to have in-text citations and a reference page. Good part is your narrative isn't APA style, right? You can use first person, you can talk about your experience. If you guys remember early on, we talked about the difference between first and third person, right? Third person limits us only to what we can see or what we have read or what we have learned from other people. First person lets us talk about our personal experience. We can talk about how it made us feel or whether we were frightened or um, what emotions we felt as we were going through the event. So first person lets us bring it out of our head and our hearts and share it with other people, but third person not so much. So both neither is better or right or wrong or good or better or worse or whatnot. It's just a different purpose in the writing style. Does that help?
Yeah, I think I was just confused on like if it's literally just the experience, or if we had some. I mean, it's not APA, so we don't have anything to back it up. But
Right. This is all personal experience, how how you felt about it, how you interpret it, not what somebody else um, um, said about it. And the good part, I guess, because it's not APA, I don't know if it's good or bad, but you don't have to do a title page. You can just put a little um, block up in the left-hand corner. Um, so it doesn't have to have a title page. Of course, it doesn't have to have a reference page either. So it's more, I think we're trying to get more directly to the emotions of the writer.
I think I'm gonna like this writing a little bit better.
That doesn't surprise me. Kira, you're being quiet. What are you thinking about tonight?
Hey, hang on one second. Okay, sorry. I don't know what's wrong with my voice, but um
Did
just
you get your email
finishing.
thing straightened out?
So they're working on it. I was able to get into Blackboard, but for some reason my email isn't like I can't log into that even though it's the same, email password. So I was able to get into Blackboard though, but for some reason like when I try to get into the email, um it's just like not loading anything, like anything new or anything. So
Hmm.
I'm just working on wrapping up the research paper. I did have a question that I meant to ask last week, or sorry, a few days ago. And sorry about that because I know I was speaking to Autumn too. And I don't know if you guys ended up hearing me, but someone called again and it just kicked me out. So it just,
We were close to finishing up anyway, so we just
yeah. But I
kind of
had a
went ahead and wrapped
question
up. Okay.
about the title page. Um, with the title page, does it need to kind of like mirror the persuasive essay title page? Like with everything that's on it that we need to put on our title page?
Yeah, so the title page isn't persuasive or research, it's APA, right? So if you have to have an AP, if you're writing in an APA style, then that title page follows the
Okay.
same format, regardless of what type of writing it is. So I think the
Okay.
answer to your question is yes, it should be exactly like the one that you did on your persuasive essay.
Perfect. And then a follow up question with that one is I know that like we can't put our research question on the title page. It needs to be like just worded a little differently. And I was gonna ask for help with that because I know we touched on that a few weeks ago, but I just forgot. So I just wanted to make sure I did that.
So yeah, the research question is different from the title of the paper, right? The title of the paper is going to be related to the topic or whatever it is that you're looking up. So the research question is going to be sort of towards the end of the first paragraph of text, and it'll be much different than the title of the paper on the title page.
Right. So I don't know why, but like, I don't know what to put.
For the research question,
No, the research question I have, but for the title of the research paper, because I know it can't really be our research question. So I didn't know what to kind of give it a title to.
so yeah, if you were writing a story, what would the title of that story be?
I would just put, like, if I was going to write a book, not really a story, I would just put the effects of homelessness of on children. But that's kind of
Okay.
what my research question is. It's what are the effects of homelessness on children?
Yeah, so let me see if I can lead you down the right path. So what did you notice about the titles of the peer-reviewed articles that you read while you were prepping for this?
Well, um, I think two of them literally said that, or they said the impacts of homelessness on children. And then, like, two were a PDF, so I kind of forgot those titles. I'd have to go look in my annotated bibliography real quick. And then one was just, I don't even know what it meant. It was just a big title. So it was just like the something breakthrough, and it said the effects of homelessness on children, or
Okay,
like
so
the
some
behavioral impact, or.
so we know that it's possible for a title to get overcomplicated. It can get too long and it can sort of start to lose meaning for the reader. Um, how many of them had a title and a subtitle?
I think that was the super long one, and it really just touched on like the hmm, either the academic or mental effect of homelessness on children.
Okay. So you could choose to give yours a title and a subtitle, or you could choose to keep it less complicated. Um, let's think. So the main point is homelessness in children. So I mean, you could give it a catchy kind of magazine, homelessness in children, semicolon. What are the effects? Or does it matter? Homelessness in children, semicolon. Does it matter? Um, so
I'm
choosing
sorry,
a
I did
title.
not catch that. What was that?
Um, it was just a suggestion. If you want to use a title and a subtitle, you could say something like homelessness and children, semicolon. Does it matter?
Oh yeah, see that's great. I would never think of anything like that. I'm not a creative writer.
So, I mean, it's just a matter of looking at the topic, and trying to, in a different style and persuasive. It's a hint. The title becomes a hint at what the paper is going to be about. In research, it's more of a hint at the larger topic, maybe, and why it's important. So that would be an option for you. Um, I know in research, I said 1,000 times, don't use a question for the title, turn it into a statement. And I think that's still effective. That's still good guidance for a research paper. don't let it be a big long question. If you want to use like that one, does it matter? That's a little short question. Um, but don't let it turn into a big long question, 12 or 15 words with a question mark at the end of it. Keep it kind of focused on a statement. Um,
The only
what
other
else?
thing I was gonna say, sorry,
It's okay.
I've looked at like the prompt for the narrative essay, so I saw that. Um, so I'm just trying to come up with something that teaches a lesson in my life that's not super, super personal, or that's not like one that doesn't lack details, that can teach a lesson, but one that's not like overly personal. So I've just been thinking about that.
That's a good step. That's a good approach. Yeah, if you were writing for a magazine article, or if you were trying to get hits on Instagram, you might get more personal than what you want to get in an English class. But the process is the same, right? Um, I don't know. Maybe you went out and got drunk on prom night and ended up in jail, and you learn never to go out with high school boys again or something. It doesn't have to be. It can be cute or funny, or it can be presented in a way that doesn't make it really heavy, if that helps, if that matters. Nobody's asking, or we're not expecting some heavy life changing event. It can just be something cute or funny, or something that you just learned a little lesson from. Does that help at all?
Well, I'll say I've never been to jail, so um, can't go there. But um, I get what you're saying, but I feel like my lessons have been heavy, so that's why I'm like, well, let's think. Hmm. So I don't know. I
Well,
thought
give it
about
some
what I
thought.
said last time, like about how me and my cousins were camping and, the dogs, but I'm just like, was that really a lesson? Maybe, like, don't just wander off, but I don't know. It was just more so scary, like, and I learned like, oh, wait for our parents, like, or go with a parent somewhere new that's scary-ish.
That's a good start. I mean, that's you could work on that a little bit, I think. I was trying to think if there was anything. Let's see here. Let's go. I'm looking over at the 1101 reader. I think the last time I pulled that up, we wound up finding out that a lot of those were, you had to pay for the articles. But here's one that let me see if I can share. I just pulled this up. Do y'all see the word Facebook in the middle of my screen?
I don't.
I don't know why. There's just a little white box in the middle of my screen that says, I don't even use Facebook. I don't know why it's there. All right. So did this share with you guys? Let's see.
Your social life. Are you a fox or a hedgehog?
With one of the best savings rates in America,
Oh,
banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing Slash to be in your band.
Next up for lead guitar. You're in.
Cool. Yep, even easier than that. And with no fees or minimums on checking and savings accounts, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One, N.A., member FDIC. The ancient Greek poet Archilochus said
Okay,
that the
so now
fox
we're
knows
getting
many
to
things about a little, but the hedgehog knows
this
one big
narrative
thing.
essay.
Philosopher Isaiah Berlin used the fox and hedgehog distinction in his brilliant essay about Leo Tolstoy's view of history and his longing for a unifying insight and understanding. The hedgehog and the fox is also a good parable for social life today. The hedgehog social life, which is what I think I grew up with, is one where you know a lot, and deeply, and intimately, about a few friends. You might count 4 people as close friends, if that many, but you know the nooks and crannies of each other's lives, and you'd be comfortable sharing anything with them. If they call you at 3:30 a.m. and need help, you feel obligated to help them. The Fox social life, which is what I think social media is selecting for, is one where you know a million little things about a lot of people. The fox might have an active social life and many acquaintances, but doesn't know much about them. The hedgehog probes deeply and narrowly, the fox schemes lightly and broadly. Obviously, both the hedgehog and the fox social lives have their virtues, and they're not mutually exclusive. Most of us probably have both, and are foxish or hedgehog.
All right, I won't bore you with listening to that whole thing. And there's a problem with sharing. I mean, I want you guys to be able to go over and read, but what we're looking at here is, a very high level essay written about, Leo Tolstoy, the Russian author, Archelaus, the Greek poet, and the philosopher Isaiah Berlin. So when we read an example written on this level, sometimes it can be a bit intimidating. And I don't want people to be intimidated by the writing process, but you can read some of these. This is just one. Let's see if we can go back and see what another one might be. Oh, here's a fun one. Let's see if we can share this. Share, 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 share. Dave Barry. All right. If you guys don't recognize this, this is an illustration of a life-size colon. So this guy, Dave Barry here, he turned 50 and realized that, or somebody told him that he needed to get a colonoscopy. And so he kind of thought about that for a little while and looked at the reasons why he wanted to or he should versus the reasons why it wasn't something that he wanted to do. So this one has a little more of a humorous approach than the other one. But he didn't mind telling, I guess, sharing the fact that he'd recently had a colonoscopy or that he was about to. Um, let's see what else we got over here. Not everybody may be comfortable talking about a colonoscopy. Here's a fun one. There were some with some, I don't know if you call them more risque titles, but now what happened? Now I'm on the New York Times and it wants me to pay. Crap, let's see. Well, okay. Never mind. We're going to have to pay to get to that one, but let's see. Stop sharing. Crap, did I see? This one is called I Owe It All to Community College, and it's an article or an essay written by Tom Hanks. And he talks about his introduction to education while he was becoming an actor. So he's just talking about how he got enrolled in community college and his journey through community college into his profession. One down here about life in the iron mills. Um, so you can look through these and see if you can find one that um, I don't know if any of these resonate with you. Just remember that if you're using these as examples, they are perfectly written and published and all that kind of stuff. And don't get that paralysis by analysis thinking yours has to be that good the first time you write it. They seldom ever are for most of
I was gonna say, I'm not gonna lie to you, those examples, especially that first one, I was just like, what? I can't do that, at least not right now. And question, and I know we didn't listen to the whole thing, but was that first one using third person and not first? Because they kept saying the hare this, the fox this, and they and them, and we need to stay in first person, right?
I don't know that I would say you need to stay in first person. What she was doing is sort of setting the stage and giving the background for the fox and the hedgehog and their different personalities. I think she goes on and she finally says, "I am more like the fox or the hedgehog," and she actually asks us to think about where we are socially. Am I a fox or am I a hedgehog? Do I know lots of people but don't know any of them well, or do I know a few people really well? And she's really she kind of leads us into thinking about our own personalities and how we fit into our social world. Um, so I don't know that I would say that you have to stay in first person. I think I said the other night, don't jump back and forth. And that's still important. You wouldn't want to write, you know, one that says the fox and the hedgehog are different. You might be a fox or a hedgehog. They do this. You wouldn't want to jump back and forth in different sentences, but you have a lot more freedom. And yeah, I'm not grading on I'm not grading on where the second person shows up or not. It's um
Okay, that no, you explained it. It makes sense. Like we can talk if we need to in third or first. Just literally don't every other sentence. Like put, if you're gonna speak in third person, speak in third person for a little bit and then go to first. So it makes
yeah,
sense. Okay.
yeah. Yeah, you might talk about, I don't know, say you might start out talking about an oak tree in a field, and you might talk about how that oak tree has stood there for 50 years or as long as you can remember. And you might talk about how the pasture has grown up and been mowed and the hay used to feed the cows that have grown up in the pasture. And then in your next paragraph might be, it's the only tree in that pasture, but it's the one that I hit the night I ran off the road in the dark. And so now you've gone from the narrative about the significance of the oak tree standing in the pasture to what you learned from the oak tree, which is don't run off the road in the dark, because if there's one tree out there, you'll hit it. And I didn't just make that up. That actually happened to a friend of mine when 1974, right? He bought he got a, it wasn't a new Corvette, but he got a Corvette, and he took it off and was driving it out through the country on these little curvy country roads, and he missed a curve and went through the little, it's not even a fence really, but the old barbed wire fences that to keep the cattle in. Went through that, and he was in the middle of a 100-acre field with one big oak tree in the middle, and he hit it head on, and it messed him up for the rest of his life. In fact, he just died, I guess is why I was thinking about him. He recently passed away. But the idea that you don't have to start off telling the whole story just like it happened to you, right? And that's what um, the author here was talking about, telling us the background on foxes and hedgehogs and what their behavior and personality is like. And then she says, and I'm a fox. Are you a fox? Or we talk about the tree and we set up the tree and the strength of the tree and how long it's there. And then we talk about I hit it with my car and it didn't break it. It's still there. And I still go by it every time I ride him. Of course, he doesn't drive anymore, but his wife could carry him. Um, so, I mean, you have some freedom. You have some academic freedom here to tell the story in a way, not necessarily what we call a linear story, where we tell it in the steps that it happened. I got up that morning and put on my rain boots and I picked up my car keys and I went out to the driveway and I got in my car and I drove down the road. So we don't have to tell it in a linear fashion. We can get creative and move the events around a little bit and practice the art of storytelling.
Yeah, and kind of like you were saying about that example, and sorry to hear that. But like you can kind of be descriptive a little bit too of like, the scene of where like that accident occurred a little bit, and then go into like what happened.
Yeah, and in that event, I think I would start out writing about the serenity, how, the sun rises over the pasture and the maybe the dew cooks off and a mist rises up over the sunlit grass. And I would start out talking about the serenity and the beauty in the pastoral setting like that, and then I would tell my story. That's the tree that I hit that changed my life forever. And then I would go into what life as a paraplegic maybe was like for him. um, and that's just an example that I just been thinking about. His name was Nicky. And Nicky, he was a paraplegic from 1974 until a week or so ago. So you might say, yeah, but that's really dark. But on the other hand, it can be sort of a celebration of a life saved, changed, but saved. Nicky got to see his two sons grow up and become men, and he lived a good long life after that event, and maybe he other people might not have. It's just one approach. I hate to try to give examples because our minds all think differently, and my example may not fit your writing style, and you'll think, well, darn, I couldn't write about that. But it's
Yeah,
just another.
it's crazy because I wasn't in a similar situation like that. I've been in like two car wrecks, but not to where it's changed my life like that. But I do have a friend, and it was a little over a year ago, and her and it's really her story, not mine. So, but I know everything about it, and it's not the same, but they're legal of age like 20. Last year were probably 26, and they went out one night to go out to like a bar, just to like have a girls' night. It was like four girls. And one of them, she was the youngest. She was a really great person, really good personality, always, happy, energetic, just really positive person to be around. And they went out one night just, go have some drinks and hang out. And she didn't drink. She was sober. She was the DD. And they were headed home from like essentially like Atlanta to Rome. But it's in Kentucky where I'm from. And they were headed back, and they were on I-65, and all of a sudden, a car hit them on the
Oh my.
interstate, head on in the interstate. It was a kid. He literally was just on a police chase, and they had just called it off like 10 minutes prior, but he was driving. He was 17 years old. He was drinking and driving. He had no license. It wasn't his car. The car was like an Audi. It was not insured. And he got on the opposite side of the interstate, obviously, and had his headlights off to evade the police. And it's like 2 in the morning, so there wasn't a bunch of traffic at all. And he hit him head on. And my friend Haley, she was in the passenger seat, and she said by the time they saw him, because it was pitch black, it was too late to like swerve or like it just happened. And The driver, the girl, she ended up dying because when police or when EMT got there, they went to the other car first, and they probably laid there for 40 minutes, or sat in that car for 40 minutes before EMTs helped them, and the girl ended up dying. And my friend Haley, she went to the hospital. She had a lot of injuries. She needed like 3 surgeries. She ends up going home, and just, people know their bodies, and she just knew something wasn't right. And I remember she went to Facebook about it, and we have a me and her used to be best friends, and we had another best friend. Her mom was like, "Oh, you just got in a fatal car accident. You're gonna be in pain. You had multiple surgeries. Like, yeah, you're in pain." And she was like, "No, something's not right." And she went back, and one of her lungs collapsed and were filled with fluid, so they had to do another surgery. She ends up, getting better, going home. Again, something wasn't right. She went back. um, she had to get her spleen removed, and she was starting to go sepsis. So they did that, and finally she recovered. But now she's good. I mean, she is without a spleen, so she is getting sick a lot. Just not having that. But she's better now. And but she lost one of her really good friends, and she suffers a little mentally from that, like emotionally, but physically she's in good shape. And you just saying that made me think of that accident she was in, and I'm just like, just crazy.
Yeah. So, could we turn those stories about somebody else into a narrative essay that somehow pays tribute to them? I would focus on, the good thing. If you can find something good come out of it. Like, I wouldn't begin to say that Nicky was irresponsible for driving too fast, or that he, was a bad person for enjoying his car. Or, I would want to focus on the fact that he survived and saw his children grow up and had some contribution. And that would be sort of the lesson for me, was that, if Nikki can live with that and grow up and contribute, then, what's holding me back? Why can't I? And that's what I would say to other people. If Nikki can do it and I can do it, what could you do to improve your community or whatnot, or try to be inspirational kind of thing with it. So you could work on that a little bit and see if you can work that into a narrative that tells a story. And again, that would be third person, right? We'd be telling what happened to somebody else. I'd be telling what happened to Nikki. You'd be telling what happened to your friend. But we don't necessarily have to say that it's third person up front, right? Like Pamela Haig did. She didn't necessarily say, I'm going to write this in third person. She just said, this is the hedgehog and this is the fox, and they have different characteristics, and until it evened itself out, and then she got around to saying what she wanted to. I feel like I'm talking too much tonight. Jill, what's going on with you?
Hello.
You've been terribly quiet so far.
I'm learning. Listen to you guys. It's a learning. So I'm good with it. No, I'm not really good with it. I'm good to listen. I'm good to listen to you guys, but I'm not good on this. Whatever.
Have you started on your narrative essay?
I, at first when you saying it, I thought it's easy, but when I started, oh no, it's not that easy like I thought. And
It it may be an easier style. Like Autumn said earlier, she thought she was going to like this style
and
more than.
yeah, I thought so, but when I start writing it, I said, "Oh no, where can I go? Where I start with?" I picked it out a couple of topics, and I really don't know how to start with it.
Well,
That's probably gonna be me later.
So I'm not alone.
no, I wish more people could come here and talk and listen, and realize that you aren't by yourself in your, uncertainty, right? Everybody goes through the same struggles, and everybody worries about what to say and how to say it, and did I say it correctly? And Could I have said it differently? So, I would say just kind of start with an idea and then turn that idea into a story that you would like to read. Or if someone was going to tell you a story that you would like to listen to.
Mhm.
See, I already know the topic I'm choosing. I just don't know how I'm gonna write it.
Write it like a story that you would be interested in listening to.
Well, mine I'm choosing the day that changed my life,
Hmm.
and that one will be 2 years ago,
Okay.
next Saturday.
So, and that's, I guess, is the death of your sister.
Yeah,
Okay. So then you have
that's
the
when
choice of,
I became a legal guardian of a little. Well, he's 3 now. He'll be 4 next month. But oh,
well, happy birthday to him. If I don't see you next month, be sure and tell him I said happy birthday.
I'm pretty sure we're gonna see each other next month if we're still doing classes.
So you got to decide, or you got to think, right? Do you want to tell this story in a linear fashion? You remember the example of a linear story that I told you just a moment ago, where you're giving the steps as they unfolded, right? And I got up in the morning, I got
Yeah,
my car keys or whatever. So, you can tell it from that linear fashion, which I think is what most students gravitate towards because it's the way that we think in our head, right? When we think about the story, we think in the terms of what happened that day and how it played out. But you're not limited to that, right?
that
You can
day I
start
can
out.
remember like it was yesterday. But after that, I can't tell you a thing.
Why don't you write that down? Why don't you start with that? Have you got that in your notes?
Which part?
What you just said, it was beautiful. Dun 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 dun
Oh, can
dun.
you hear the background?
Yeah.
My cousin. My cousin's watching
Yeah.
TV while I do class.
I think you meant
Oh,
literally what you just said, and you could maybe start off like that, like, um, the day that changed my life. I remember like it was yesterday, but I can't tell you anything after that, and then just talk about that day. And I hate to say this because I might not say it right, so I'm sorry. My emotional part isn't the greatest. And sorry to hear about your sister. Um, I will say, fortunately, I have not had any family members like sisters or parents that I'm really close to pass yet. So that's something that I haven't had to ever deal with. And I don't know how people go through that. And I don't know the circumstances. I don't know what happened. But I think if I were to read a story, what would pull me in the most isn't linear. I think it would be like, example, let's say you received a phone call. That's probably how, if I were reading something, that would like draw me right in. Like, um, I got a phone call, I answered it, and then start it from there, and then go back and say how the day started or something, if that makes sense, or if that even
so you're
helps.
so you're seeing it sort of like a movie script, right? Like a TV show that would come on and you see the phone ringing and somebody rushing to put up groceries or something, trying to get to it. That's kind of old-fashioned phone where it sat on the counter and it rang and you had to put stuff down to get to it. The phones are different these days, but and that's good, right? You can get really creative if you see the story play out sort of like a television show script or something. And it's interesting that we talk about the phone call because when I had my motorcycle wreck, remember the girl found my ID badge on my watch band pretty quickly, and she called my wife, who was in the doctor's office, and she rejected the phone call 3 times before she answered it on the fourth time to find out that I was involved in that wreck. So if I were going to tell that story, I might start out from my wife's point of view. Look, the doctor's office is a boring thing that everybody has to go to. Nothing good ever comes out of a doctor's office. And my wife sat there for 20 minutes until her watch began to ring, and she didn't recognize the number, so she didn't answer it. It rang a second time. She looked at it, didn't answer it. The third time it rang, she finally decided maybe she should see what had happened. And she found out that I was laying face down in the asphalt 100 miles away. So, and then I would launch in maybe to, how the accident played out or what happened. But um, yeah, I like the idea of it if you can weave a little storytelling into it like writers for TV shows do. And I love that line. You know, I remember that day like yesterday, but I don't remember anything else. And then you could, develop the story from there. That's a good opening sentence or two.
I would also say, and I again, I don't know what happened, and I don't know how, what you have to write about, but if you did, like start it that way, like if it was like a phone call or something, you could talk about that. And like he said, talk about the accident, what happened. And then I don't know how you are, but I really struggle with writing. And I'd be like, well, what would I talk about after that? I think that would be a beautiful way to transition out of how you became a guardian of your, that's your nephew, right?
Yes.
Yes. And then kind of talk about him and how, just you can say, you're keeping her name alive and her memory alive with him. And I think that'd be really beautiful.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. This is gonna be one of the hardest papers I've had to write just because of the topic, but it's kind of one that I'm looking forward to writing.
So writing can be cathartic. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the word cathartic, but it sort of means to heal within by doing something else, right? So a cathartic experience might be one while you write the story, you have a little inner healing going on, and it may bring you a little inner peace. And, of course, I guess most people say, it was a story I didn't really want to write, but I felt like I had to write it. And so they do. And when it's all said and done, and it may be a story, Autumn, that follows you, you may rewrite this same story over 10 years. You may go back and rewrite this story when your nephew is 15 years old and reflect on how it got started and how what happened to your sister and how he came to be in your guardianship. So some of these stories kind of take on a life and live and breathe on their own for a long time after we turn them in English class, and that's okay. That can be helpful. It can be a growth experience for you. But now those are the stories, as we said earlier, those are the stories that can get dark and deep. And not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody wants to share that kind of emotion in their English class. So don't feel that you have to go out and, find some really emotional experience to share. Like as I said earlier, it can be a funny story or um, have a little humor with it. You got some options. And everybody's singing, wow.
So that's what you mean, like don't looking for something like raw or something like that. Just go with like simple thing or
Well, you have the option, Jill. You can if you feel drawn to write about something that's very emotional, this is certainly an opportunity to start that story. And it might be something that you write and put in a drawer and never think about again. On the other hand, it might be something that you try to share more often or try to develop or rewrite later on down the road. But you don't have to. You don't have to. You can think about funny things that have happened. Trying to think of something funny. I mean, my kids tell me I do funny things all the time, but when I try to think of them, they just weren't that funny. They're dad things that I didn't think were funny. Um, but I don't know. You can write a story about, when you fell in love with this little puppy and it was so cute and it followed you home, so you kept it. And then one morning you woke up and he weighed 150 pounds. All right. And he was big and red. So you named him Clifford. And then you could talk about the relationship with the dog and how you've enjoyed living with the dog over the years. For me, it would be my cat. I would want to talk about how my cat was, the litter was born in our home underneath some furniture in the guest room. So we didn't know they were there. And so one morning, or I can't know if it's the morning, but one day I go in there and the little wiener dog, my little wiener dog is grunting around trying to get under the dresser or whatever. And I try to see what she's after and I shine the flashlight back there and there's 4 or 5 little kittens. And essentially I thought it was wonderful. I thought, oh look, we've got baby kitties, I want to play with them and all that stuff. Well, then the wiener dog figured out somehow, oh, the kittens started crawling. They got old enough to crawl and they would crawl towards the light, I guess. And the wiener dog would grab them and drag them out and eat them. So the wiener dog ate them all but the one. And the one that I have that survived, he wouldn't come out to see me until he was 6 months old. He just ran around from place to place under the furniture, so we couldn't really play with him. And then, for whatever reason, one night he decided to jump up on the foot of the bed, and me and him have been buddies ever since. So I don't know if you would consider that gross because all the kittens got eaten. I was thinking of it as being a cute little fun story about my cat, but I guess when you think about the litter of kittens getting eaten by the wiener dog, it's kind of gross.
You always have one about an animal dying.
Well, I have lived my life with animals. I really have. I've lived my life with animals from the time I can remember. You know, my granddaddy had goats and chickens, and mama had kittens and cats, and my brother had dogs. And I still remember to this day, I would tell him his dog stink. I said, "Your dog, that dog stinks." He'd say, "She don't stink. She just smells like a dog." So even today, when I think about something that has a bad odor and I want to say it stinks, I think, well, it doesn't really stink. It just smells like a sewer treatment plant or whatever. It just smells like chicken manure. It doesn't really stink. So the next time you think of something that stinks, I want you to think it doesn't really stink. It just smells like what it's supposed to smell like.
That's gonna go through all of our heads now.
Yeah, I still
See,
think it stinks. So, it
I
does
mean, I
smell
do
like
too,
it smells like,
but we
but
got
it
me
still
thinking
stinks.
about that.
and not only that, but I used to tell my brother he stinks because he'd go out and roll around with that dog and play with that big old dog. And I'd say, "Man, you stink." He'd say, "I don't stink. I just smell like my dog." And I'd say, "Well, I hope your dog washes his clothes tonight."
So, I have a question. You
Hmm.
saying that story about your cat unlocked a little memory for me, but I don't. It was a long time ago. I was a kid, so I don't remember like the entire day. I just remember the incident. But there is a lesson. I don't know if it's a great lesson, but the lesson is obviously I'm being a smart aleck on part of this. Obviously, listen to your parents. But really, yeah, listen to your parents. But if if you have stray animals, like just outside animals, like kind of listen to your parents, yeah, but you should wash your hands, because animals do sense, So essentially, what happened, I remember some details very well, but I won't go into all that. But it was Mother's Day. It was in the morning. I remember asking my mom to go outside to play with the stray cat. She would never let me bring it in. And I grew up with animals too. I mean, like so many. We had a Dalmatian, a dog. They both had puppies. We had two different cats, kittens, and our Dalmatians ate the kittens. It made me so upset. I remember that. Um, my mom had a snake. Me and my brother had gerbils. I remember him antagonizing me and saying that he let my gerbil out and the snake was out and the snake ate my gerbil. I had rabbits. We had a turtle. Like we had a lot of animals growing up too. But I do remember when we had moved from Arizona to Ohio, we kind of let go of all the pets. And we just had a cat at the time, and it was a white cat. Its name was Mountain. I loved that cat. And it was really, I hate to say this, but a replacement for my favorite ever cat, ever, best cat ever. And maybe I could talk about that, but I was younger then and don't really remember that. But I had a cat that was orange. Its name was Peaches, and it was my best friend. Like, I could put it, in those little baby doll strollers. This
Yeah.
cat would let me put it in clothes, put it in the doll stroller. I have pictures of it. That was like the best cat ever. And my stepdad was a butthole and let it run out the door and lied to me. But anyways, back to the lesson here. We had a white cat. Its name was Mountain, and I guess white cats can be a little aggressive if they're like fully white. I don't know. There's just a little bit of history on it. They say if they're like fully white, they could be aggressive. But anyways, it was a sweet cat. I remember it was Mother's Day. I think I was like 8. I think I was 9 years old though, but it was Mother's Day, and my mom was in the kitchen on the phone with my Aunt Barbie. She was making breakfast. I asked her if I could go outside and play with the stray cat, and she said yes. But when I come in, make sure I wash my hands and my arms, because our cat was like, I guess he was a little aggressive, just more territorial, should I say.
Hmm.
So when I came back in, she was like, "Did you wash your?" I'm like, "Yep, sure did." And I go in the living room, and I'm sitting like crisscross applesauce, and I'm playing with my cat, and literally all of a sudden, he attacked me. And I have scars on my arm, that I had to, if it was like, I guess, 1 centimeter deeper. I remember the drive to the hospital. I remember being in the hospital. I would have had to get stitches up my arm, and there's like a tooth mark right next to that big vein on your arm,
Oh
um,
my.
on your bottom. Yeah, he got me pretty good. And I didn't scream. I didn't. I think I was in a lot of shock, and it hurt, and I cried. And I remember walking into the kitchen to my mom, and I was like, "Mom," and she was on the phone, cooking, and just her back was turned towards me, and she just was not paying me any mind. I was like, "Mom," and I think by the third or fourth time, she was like, "Hold on, Barbie. Carrie, what?" And she turned around and looked, and there's just blood like gushing out. And she was like, "Oh my God, Barbie, I'm gonna have to call you back. What happened?" And I told her, and she got a towel, and we wrapped up my arm, and I was just crying. And I remember she put me in the back seat, and she like flew to the hospital. But when I came home, my cat was gone. But she did ask me in between that time, "Did you wash your hands and arms?" And I said, "I did." And I never did. And in result, I'm pretty sure my stepdad killed my cat. They
Oh
just told
my.
me they got rid of him, but they killed him. And I feel
Yeah.
like that was my fault. And if I, would have told the truth, maybe that wouldn't have happened. Or if I would have went and washed my hands, it would have happened. But I don't think that's really anything positive to say. So,
Well, it's a
but I remember it, and there's a
yeah,
lesson.
and it's another sad story, but sad stories have, I mean, you can find meaning in sad stories, and if it's one that you want to develop and share, I think it would be a good topic. So just give it some, you guys have to give it some thought and figure out just how emotionally open you want to be, and then work from there, right? If you want to be more emotionally open, then work on something that has an emotional connection, to something that might you might find cathartic to write the story, and in your case, maybe get the truth out in the open. Um, I don't know if that'll be cathartic for you or not, but yeah, there's just so many possibilities. And like you say, um, here's the thing, right? We learn the big life lessons easily, right? The important things, don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, you know, all those things. We learn that early and kind of out loud. But it's the little lessons, these little stories that we have inside of us, that where we learn these little lessons that nobody really teaches out loud. It just happens as sort of a, I don't know if I hate to say trial and error, but life experience maybe. Um, and so, nobody teaches us out loud to keep the wiener dog away from the kittens. It's just something that happens, and you stand back like, oh my gosh, the dog ate the kitten. What kind of crap is that? So those are the stories, or those are the lessons that are, I don't know if they're important to share, but I think we'll find that when we do share those, more people can relate than we might first think, right? And so that story where you learned that little lesson, somebody else will remember I learned that lesson a little differently, or the same thing happened to me. I got something different out of it. So, yeah, I guess I'm trying to say don't focus on teaching big out loud lessons. Just focus on the little lessons that you have tucked away down inside somewhere that you can share and maybe enrich somebody else's world through the sharing.
Question, and I know probably
You went away on me. Kiri, I couldn't hear your question. Still not yet. Are you guys hearing her?
No.
Okay, so something happened to your microphone, Kiri.
Then maybe it's lost the internet. So.
Yeah, it might be an internet connection or something. I see your mic going hot, but then I don't hear you. Jill, have I said anything that's inspired you tonight?
Kind of.
I kind of inspired somebody. That's pretty cool.
I almost got the correct yesterday morning. So when you say that, I said, okay, I have a reason to say why. like
Yeah,
don't
so
when you
you
drive
could
you have to have more time to repair it
don't
for it because don't
yeah,
get
don't follow so closely.
short time. I will hurry when I get out of class and it was late to pick up my husband from the doctor office. So I try to get in there as early as I can, and I turn the left side on the green traffic light, turn on left side.
Oh,
Luckily that lady she stopped right in front of my car and horned me so hard. But I was so thank you.
all you can do is say, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all I can do. So sorry. I feel so
Oh,
bad.
goodness. Well,
I feel so bad.
you know,
I will repair have time to drive in, and yesterday were so bad.
you know what that makes me think about? Do you know what a bumper sticker is?
Nope.
See, bumper stickers are something that we used to have as kids, and today, I don't know, nobody uses. You don't see
Oh
bumper
yeah, yeah,
stickers anymore.
yes. I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
Little stickers that go on the bumper of your car.
yes.
Yeah. I was thinking when you were talking about your story there, I was thinking of a bumper sticker that used to be popular. It said, "Get off my ass," for
Yes,
people that were following. If you could read this, you were too close.
I saw that.
Yeah.
A lot. I saw that a lot on the road.
Yeah. So, I was just thinking how you could relate that story to a bumper sticker. And in this case, maybe there's not a bumper sticker for "Don't turn yet" or "Don't turn now."
Yes.
That's just one of those little lessons you learn. But I mean, how I don't know how old you are. You may not want to tell us, but you've gotten to be
50.
this age. You're
I don't want.
50, and you haven't had a car. You haven't had a car yet, Rick. Yet, have you?
No, not yet. Lucky me.
Okay, so you got to be 50 years old, and this is as close as you've ever gotten to a car wreck. So you're doing
Right.
pretty well.
So far.
That's what I told myself about my motorcycle wreck. I got to be 60 years old before I got run over on my motorcycle, so I'm doing pretty well.
Wow.
We're not likely to have that happen to us again.
Hmm. All right. We don't want that happen.
No. Kiri, I see you made it back. You had a question before you had to rejoin.
Yeah, it's like people call when I'm on my phone, and then it just like I can't hear. You guys can't hear me, so I don't even hear. I did not get to hear what Jill said. So, anyways, yeah, my question, and I tried to chat it, and then they tried to call back, and it knocked me out of the chat, and I'm like, ah. Um, but my question, and this might be a stupid question, but I'm just inquiring.
Okay.
I know this is supposed to teach a lesson. Do we have to state what the lesson is in the essay, or can it go unspoken?
I think it can go unspoken.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think you have to say the moral of this story is listen to your parents, right? I think, in your case, I'm just thinking about that story, but when you came home and found out the cat was gone, in the back of your mind, you were thinking the cat is gone because I told them that I washed my hands. And so the reader is going to understand, you know, had she told the truth, something might have been different, right? So I think the reader will get the point, and you don't have to say it out loud, not, like we did in persuasion and research, where you have to say, this paper is guided by the research question. What is the effect of this on that? In the narrative, we're going to be a lot less or a lot more subtle, a lot less in your face, and I think that it's going to play out real well. I think you'll enjoy reading each other's papers and practicing that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Because that answered my question. And that's what I was chatting. Like, compared to, our other papers, we've had to, like, put it out there. And I'm like, is that a requirement? Because I don't want to do it and turn it in. And, like, it was a requirement and I didn't do it. And I'm like, oh, crap. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Autumn, how are you feeling now?
I'm pretty okay.
Okay, you still feeling sorry for the kittens?
Yes.
I can't believe he let the dog eat the kittens. I feel better that Kiri had the same thing happen to her kittens.
Oh, my
Yeah, that
goodness. I
sounds
was
like that's
so
pretty bad too.
young.
What do they say about misery and company, right? I don't want to
Yeah.
be the only one who let the dog eat the kittens.
I was
Well,
gonna say
I will say for me, it was not me. It had to be my parents because we lived in Arizona and I only lived there till I was 5. And we had a, I guess, a black lab. I really don't remember if it was a black lab. I just know it was a big black dog. And then we had a Dalmatian. I remember that because I called her Dottie because she had dots all over her, and they both had litters of puppies. And then we had 2 cats, and they also had 2 litters of cats. And obviously, Arizona, at least the part I was in, it's the desert. So our backyard was just sand, like literally. And I don't know how old I was, but I remember it, and I was little, and I went to kindergarten there. I do know that, and or it was probably preschool. Yeah, because I did kindergarten in Ohio. So I went to preschool. But anyways, nonetheless, I came home one day and I don't, I can't tell you reasoning. I don't remember that. I just remember that I walked up the back door into the backyard, and there, I'm sorry, I could be so descriptive, but I won't. There was just fur, like fur and blood, and it was everywhere. And I was like, what happened? And I started to walk like behind the house, further down, and there were, even the puppies were doing it, and it was the Dalmatian ones. And there was a few kittens left, and I mean, I cried so hard. I was so upset with my parents, and they were like, the dogs just got out, like the cats and they must have got out. And I'm like, no, someone needs to be held accountable for this. But it was very sad. So it wasn't on me though.
All right, I can't deflect that one. I guess I could say I was ignorant in thinking that the kittens wouldn't crawl out from under they wouldn't crawl out from under the furniture and sacrifice themselves to the wiener dogs, but I just didn't think about it happening.
Well,
But
I
we're
think
at
too.
8:10, so
Usually
we're
animals, they don't like, usually, they say, like, like out in the wild, there'll be like you know, like, or maybe you might have said it or something, but there's like, it might have been my professor, psychology, but like wolves have taken in humans, or like tigers have taken in, you know, like the animals, they know their babies. And yeah, so I wouldn't put too much blame on yourself.
Well, I can tell you right now that a wiener dog sees a kitten as a food source and not a family member. Oh man, bless their little hearts. The kittens crawled out and then didn't they? I guess they didn't know they had to crawl back, so it was a lesson for them too. But uh,
A lesson
a
for
lot of
them, they
gross.
died.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All except for
Well, the one
uh,
noticed, the one learned from, you know, their brothers and sisters. They learned the lesson.
once
Stay under
those
that
idiots crawl
furniture.
out there and never come back, I ain't getting out there.
Look, I was
So,
so bad that I had a stuffed animal unicorn that my papa made me throw away because I left it outside, and I refused. Like I threw it away, but then I went to go to get it back out, and he made me cut it, and I squalled because I felt like I was killing that unicorn, and it
people
was a
have
stuffed
such big
animal.
hearts. Yeah, we just love things that sometimes it just doesn't add up. But I love my cat. I'm glad he made it. Me and him got to be close friends. I've learned to speak cat. You know, I will say meow, 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 meow. We have conversations in cat, and he really appreciates that I took the effort. I made the effort to learn his language. I think it's made us closer.
I have a cat now. She was a stray. It was like, she's a little over a year. She was a stray little kitten at my door, and I used to work from home, and I shockingly was working in my living room. And I just kept. It was nighttime, and it was fall. It was like September, October. You know, it kind of got cold around October, like 2 years ago. Yeah, because she's like one and some change, one and a half. And it wouldn't stop meowing. But I was working, and it was like for a contact center. So it was like calls back to back to back to back. And I couldn't just get up because I was connected to my laptop. So I literally just took a 10-minute break, and I walked to my front door, and it's this cute little kitten. And I'm like, oh. And I've always been like a stickler for taking in stray animals. And I brought her in. I threw her in my bathroom and locked her in there because I just knew she'd have fleas, but I had to finish my shift. And I went down to my neighbor that loves animals, and they gave me some like cat flea shampoo. And I mean, she was covered in fleas, but we got rid of her. And yeah, she's been here ever since. But I will say, she does not. And I've had cats my whole life. I love cats. I love dogs too, but cats more than dogs. And she does not know her name, and I don't know why. Oh, and like she doesn't know her name. She responds to like yes, no, come here, you know, everything else, but her name, and my daughter named her, so her name is Illy. And it rhymed with our old dog Millie. So and she was like 3.5 at the time, so that's probably why her name's Illy, because she didn't know, you know, she just wanted to rhyme rhyme their names. But she does not respond to her name. But what she does do, if you, and someone might think this is gross, but oh well, um, if you go like down to her face and put your nose out, she'll kiss you with her nose every time. And it's so cute, you know? Like she knows what you're going for, but she won't respond. She doesn't know her name.
there is nothing gross about Eskimo kissing your cat. That's just something you have to do. That's just part of having a cat. And I'll tell you one more thing and then we'll adjourn. I actually changed my cat's name. I originally named him Zorro because he has a black mask, but I changed his name to Meow Meow so he would know I was talking to him. So now when I say meow, meow, he knows I'm talking to him. All right, guys, let's wrap it up. Does anybody have a burning question that you just need to ask before we go adjourn?
Yes, I do
Okay, Jill.
have. Can you send me the video? Did you record it at Tuesday night? I wasn't sewn up on
I
Tuesday.
didn't. I did not. I did tonight. Let's see. I'm gonna go up there and hit
Oh, I have it.
stop.
I recorded tonight. I do record the